All right, welcome to the next lesson, which is more decimals. We're going to look at really a few things that become important here as we move forward before we start the operations with our decimals. So for these, we want to basically switch between fractions and decimals here on this worksheet. We're either going to put fractions into decimals or decimals into fractions. So we're going to start by putting the fractions into decimals. So we've already actually done this. However, we were doing it with a remainder, or we were doing it as a fractional remainder. When we discussed this, we said okay, it's going, soon they could ask you for a decimal remainder. So like we've talked about all along, it sometimes helps to see this fraction up and down vertically, 12 over 15. And again, why don't they do it? They really just do it out of convenience. It's harder to write a fraction in any document or any program vertically. So 12 over 15, really that's just a division problem. We've seen this. And we want to put the bottom one on the outside. So we have 15 over 12, 15 on the outside, 12 on the inside. Now, up until this point, we would say, okay, does 15 go into 12? No, it doesn't. Oh, we're done. We can't do the problem. But we're not that lucky anymore. Really what we want to do is we want to add a decimal. Wherever we end it, add it below, we're going to pop it up to the top too. And then we want to add 1 0. Now we want to start by adding a 0, and we want to see, usually you won't have to go out more than 3 or 4 spots, and they're going to tell you what you need to round it to. So we're going to go at least 3 places. Okay, and see what happens. So now we say, does 15 go into 120? You see that it does. It goes in 8 times. And again, because it's going into the whole number 120, we put it above the 0 because it doesn't go into 1 and it doesn't go into 12. It goes into 120. So 15 times 8 gives you 120. Whatever goes up must come down. Now, we ignore the decimal other than that. So the decimal is really just there to remind you where to pop it up to the top. But for all this subtraction stuff, we don't worry about it. 0, 0, 0, 0, and we're done. So 12 over 15 is actually the same as 0.8 or 8 tenths. All right, so if we do the same thing for 9 over 10, 10 is the one that pops out. So it looks like this, 10 and 9. And again, we know we have a problem because our inside number is smaller than our outside number. And then we're basically putting the decimal and the 0, and we're popping the decimal up to the top. You're saying 10 doesn't go into 9, but 10 does go into 90. And how many times does it go into 90? It goes in 9 times. 10 times 9, what goes up must come down, 90, and we subtract, and we get no remainder. So again, we're done. So we know that 9 tenths is really the same as 0.9. So 2 and 7/8. So just like with the first worksheet, we are only going to worry about the fractional piece because ultimately we know we can just pop the whole number part of it in front at the end. So we're popping the 8 out. 7's on the inside. Since 7 is smaller than 8, I need the decimal and a 0, and I pop that decimal up to the top, right above it. I say to myself, okay, does 8 go into 7? No. But does 8 go into 70? Yes. And the answer is 8 times. So 8 times 8 is 64. We subtract it and we get 6. Now, we can't have a remainder for this because we can't have a decimal and a remainder. All right, so we want to keep going, but we can't keep going because 8 doesn't go into 6. So what do we have to do? We have to add another 0 and drop it down. So 8 times what gives you 60? And that's 7. The closest to 60. 8 times 7 is 56. I subtract, I get 4. Again, I'm still not done because I want to go at least 3 places. So I add another 0. I drop it down and I get 40. And I say, okay, does 8 go into 40? Yes, it does. And it goes in 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. I subtract it and I get 0. So now I'm done. Now, will that always happen? No, it won't always happen. However, they're going to tell you where you can round so you're not just dividing forever. Now, the most important piece to this problem, one could argue, is that 2 needs to come down as your whole number answer. And then the decimal answer comes down and it becomes, 2 7/8 is the same as 2.875. All right, and this one, so if I'm kind of preparing this one, I can say, okay, this 2 is going to come down. It's definitely going to have a 2 in front of it, 2 point something, right? And then I can say to myself, okay, well, 2 divided by 3, we're going to put the 3 on the outside, the 2 on the inside. And since the 2 is smaller than the 3, I need the point or the decimal and the 0, and the decimal pops up to the top. So 3 doesn't go into 2, but it does go into 20, and it goes in 2 times. I lied. It goes in a lot more than 2. It goes in 6 times. And 3 times 6 gives me 18, and I subtract. And you're going to notice something that happens here, because when I subtract 20 minus 18, I get 2. Well, I add another 0 and bring it down. Well, I have 20 again. So, what happens? How many times does 3 go into 20? That's a 6. You get 18 again. You subtract it. You get 2. Add another 0. Drop it down. You get 20. That's another 6. And ultimately, if you see that pattern happening, you're going to know that it's 0.666, and that we can put above. That means it repeats. Okay, it's a repeating bar. The other thing you can do if it tells you to round is you could say 2.6, and we could round this in here, and it would be 2.67. So we know 2 2/3 is either 2.666 repeating or 2.67. If we round it, you would need to listen to the directions on what they tell you to do. All right, so now down here, this is just more practice from our previous worksheet. If we have this fraction and we want to turn decimal and we want to turn it into a fraction, we definitely need a fraction bar. Remember, that number goes on top, and the number that goes on the bottom is a 1 with the number of zeros in the digit in the number on top. So 2 digits on top, 2 zeros on the bottom. And then we can simplify. So for this one, these are actually both divisible by 25 because it's like quarters. 75 divided by 25 is 3. 100 divided by 25 is 4. And you have 3/4. For this one, 0.875. All right, and we actually just did this one just above, but now you're going to see the flip side of how you would figure it out the other way, from the other angle. So we have 875 on the top. We have 1,000 on the bottom because 3 digits on top, 3 zeros on the bottom. And we're going to simplify. So again, divisible by 5, I can just start dividing by 5. And the 875 isn't too pretty to do by 5, but, it goes once. Once you have 5, subtract that, you get 7, that's 7, 35, subtract that, you get 2, bring down the 5, and you get 5. So you get 175 over, and now 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. Again, you can take out a 5 again. Okay, 175 divided by 5 is going to be 3. It's 15, 25, 5. So we're going to get 35 over 40. Again, we can take out a 5 again. And we get 7 over 8. Now, that means we could have obviously taken out a much bigger number, but I didn't know that number off the top of my head. So it does end up being 125 that we could have taken out. But you can, go it bit by bit, step by step if you'd like as well. All right, so this one is going to be very similar because look at the numbers. We end with the 5. So we know on top we're going to have 975 and on bottom we're going to have 1,000 because, again, three numbers on top, 3 zeros on the bottom. And again, if we start dividing this by 5, we're going to get the 200 on the bottom because 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. And if we do 975 divided by 5, we get 1, 47, 9, 45, 2, 5, 5. So we get 195. Again, if I divide by 5, 195 divided by 5, that's going to be 3, 15, 45, that's going to actually be 9. So we get 39 over 40, and I cannot simplify that any further. All right, for this one, we're going to have 6225 over 10,000 because 4 digits on top, 4 zeros on the bottom. We're just going to, start dividing. Now, if we wanted to, we could divide by 25. But again, I just find the 5s easier because I can do some of that in my head. So 1,000 divided by 5 is going to be 2,000 instead of 200 because I have that extra 0. If I do 6225 divided by 5, I get 1, 2, 4, 5. So I get 1,245. Again, I can take 1,245 and divide that by 5 because I know on bottom I'm going to get 400. I get 2, 4, 9. So I have 249 over 400, and 249 over 400 is going to be as simplified as you get. Good luck, and I will see you here next year for the next worksheet.